presentation. I believe you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can see your presentation. Kindly put it on presentation mode.
Okay.
All right.
It's okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. The topic for discussion this afternoon is transforming lives through e-cooking. We'll be talking about the successful stories of people who have already embraced e-cooking technology and show how it has impacted their lives positively. I believe as Kenyans, we are familiar with the many headlines that we often see around our televisions or even hear in our radios about the families or family members who have died as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning due to the combustion of CO2 from a preview, just a few examples of the cases that we are familiar with. 5 family members die in Jiko poisoning. I don't know how much we often take this news, if we often take this news seriously, or if we just normally leave them or take it as it is. I don't know if any of us has ever had any of their family members or friends died or affected in one or another through the carbon monoxide poisoning. Another preview, households turn to green cooking to cut costs and death. Another preview, outrun by gas prices, Kenyan families turn to charcoal to cook. Most of the cases in Kenya, clean cooking technologies have been promoted, but sadly, many people tend to turn back to their normal ways of cooking due to reasons known to them, such as increased prices of these clean cooking technologies, as we have seen in the third example. So I'll give a brief introduction, background of this whole issue of biomass and why the need to embrace clean cooking and particularly e-cooking in our daily cooking at home. There is a quote by Joseph Prince that says, I love the quote, don't use all your health to chase after wealth, only to spend all your wealth later to get back your wealth. The choices of cooking fuels that we choose to cook our food matters a lot, because in the end, either directly or indirectly, they may affect us, not only health-wise, but in so many ways. So if we choose to use biomass for cooking, maybe for because they are cheap or they're easily accessible, the effects may not be immediate, but in the long term, these effects normally catch up with us, and we may have to end up using all the wealth that we generated to trying to restore our health. Household air pollution is a silent killer. It's normally not publicized as other diseases such as malaria, HIV, AIDS, which many people are afraid of. It's a disease that is rarely spoken and which results to many deaths when compared to the deaths attributed to like HIV or even malaria. Globalist, a third of the population, which is almost like 2.8 billion. The current population in the world stands at about 7.7 billion. So almost a third of the world population uses biomass fuel to cook. What is even more interesting is that out of this 2.8 billion, 1 billion comes from Africa, which translates to about 80% of the population in Africa. What's even more interesting is that as per 2016 statistics, the population in Africa stood at 1.216 billion. And you can compare with the population that is using biomass to cook. To mean that the population that is using clean cooking technologies is negligible. In as much as you are promoting this, the uptake is really slow. At the moment, the penetration rate of clean cooking stands at about 0.4%, which is a small fraction compared to the people using biomass, and that's the need to promote the use of clean cooking fuels so that its adoption can be embraced on a wide scale. Out of the population of the world, almost 4 million people die every year due to household air pollution. Out of these 4 million, 50% of these deaths happen in children below 5 years, mainly due to pneumonia. In Kenya alone, more than 21,500 deaths are attributed to household air pollution. And that's the need to talk about these issues and try to change the perception of people about the use of dirty fuels, and that's the need to shift to clean cooking technologies. Now from that introduction, I'll go to directly to the success stories of people throughout in different parts of Kenya who have already embraced and are using e-cooking and other forms of clean cooking technologies for their cooking. This is Mary. Mary is an elderly lady residing in Kiamana Estate in Nakuru County. Mary stays with her husband and her grandchild, who can be seen at the door. For Mary, due to age, cooking it is something that she began not to like, considering the process of cooking, considering that she had to go and collect fuel and come back and light fire for cooking. Considering that she lives alone with her husband, at times her child visits, the process of going to collect firewood was something not easy for her, considering her age. Now, when the main sources of fuel that she used before she began using the EPC was firewood. And this was not a big deal to her then, as it was a mode of cooking that everyone in her neighborhood used to cook with. But considering her age, as she indicates from the brackets, having to light up charcoal or firewood to make my meals nowadays is becoming difficult. And most importantly, she used to be affected by the smoke that she inhaled from the use of either charcoal or firewood that caused her to experience chest pains whenever she ingested the smoke coming from these dirty fuels. To Mary, the EPC was something that really transformed her life. As we can see from the quotations, at my age, it's more than a blessing. It's something that all women my age should have. When we visited Mary, she was with her husband. Her husband had an accident while looking after the kettle, and so he couldn't be of much help to her. So Mary says that before she began using the EPCs, she will not eat or prepare meals as often as she would love. The mere thought of her going to fetch for firewood and coming back to prepare her meals at times forced her to skip essential meals in as much as she was hungry. But now with the EPC, Mary says that she can cook as often as she wants, and she no longer go hungry for extended periods of time. She can make light meals like pancake, which on this day we found her preparing pancake as a dessert to eat in between the meals. So she appreciates the technology and the fact that most of the meals get to be cooked within a limited time. With no one to send around, I've already talked about that. She used to get tired from all the activities. What also impressed her is that the fact that she can drink warm water whenever she wants during cold seasons, and even have a hot shower regardless of the time. And then the fact that she no longer goes hungry for long, and then she no longer experiences chest pains. She started using the EPC. And her biggest joy is attributed to the fact that the rains do not scare her anymore. Previously, she stated that whenever it rains, she either had to postpone cooking or resort to buying charcoal, which at times she didn't have the money to buy charcoal. So in most cases, whenever it rained, she went without food. So this technology is something that really came through for her, considering that electricity, which is the main fuel is always accessible and always available. And what impressed her more is the fact that when you cook ugali using the EPC, no flour gets to remain at the bottom of the pot. So to her, the fact that she no longer wastes maize was something of significance to her. She stated that before she could use 1 kg packet of ugali flour to cook ugali twice, 2 meals. But now with the APC, she used the same amount of flour to prepare a meal of ugali for 3 times. Now this was a plus for her and something that she underscored, and a technology that she recommends all women her age to embrace. Another case study is Miriam. She's also a middle-aged woman residing in Kiamana, Nakuru County. Previously, Miriam used to use firewood, charcoal, and LPG, with firewood being the main source of fuel she used for cooking. However, sometimes whenever she ran out of firewood and didn't have the money to buy charcoal, she was sometimes compelled to resort to even dirty, if there's such a word, to resort to dirty sources just to prepare meals for herself and her children, like polythene bags, which I believe are even more toxic than firewood or charcoal. Though she knew the harmful effects of using these materials, her immediate concern was about getting the food ready. With the introduction of the EPC, she was impressed about the short cook time that the EPC takes to cook, and the fact that the foods prepared using EPC were even tastier than the normal food that she usually prepared. This is because the moisture content is not lost and all the moisture is retained in the pot, something that may help explain the increased taste of the food. Most importantly, electric cooking fuel is cheap compared to the fuels that she has used. Like approximately to cook foodstuff like dairy, beans, your meat or your chicken, you get to use less than 0.5 units, which is an equivalent of 10 Kenyan shillings, which you can't compare with like a container of makaa that normally costs around 80 shillings. Another thing that Mary was happy about was the fact that the EPC brought love in her home. She stated that previously none among her children wanted to be tasked with the responsibility of cooking njahe. Njahe is the main staple food for those coming from the Kikuyu community, and it's a food that normally takes long time to boil, approximately 3 to 4 hours to boil. So none of her children normally wanted to be tasked with that duty, because it meant they had to stay in the house to wait for the food to be cooked. But that changed the moment they acquired an EPC, with which they can use at most 1 hour, 60 to 90 minutes, and you don't have to supervise the food while cooking, because once cooked, the EPC will switch off itself. Another thing that she loved about the EPC was the fact that it's convenient. With an EPC, you don't need a hot pot, because the food gets to remain hot for up to 8 hours. And in terms of health, she said that she can now eat clean food free from the smell of smoke and other particles, and that used to find the food that doesn't get dirty, and her granddaughter never coughs as often as she used while she was using biomass, and her eye conditions has improved due to the use of EPC. So after experiencing all the benefits that come with the use of an EPC, she doesn't see herself going back to the use of biomass. This is Phoebe. Phoebe is the youngest among the people that we interviewed in Nakuru. To her, this technology really, she appreciates the technology and she likes it because it's convenient, and she can use it. She can cook while doing other things at the same time. She doesn't have to be there monitoring the food. Previously, she used a combination of firewood, charcoal, and LPG, with firewood being her main source of charcoal. Her family members previously used to complain of headaches, coughs, and flu, which reduced with frequency ever since they started using the EPC. Her biggest dread while using the biomass fuel was the fact that at night she had to cook outside the home, and living in a secluded area, she was often fearful that she might be subject to attack from people with ill intentions. In as much as she had the option of cooking earlier, that could not be because she will again need to warm the food at night for the family to eat, and that will mean having to light the firewood twice. So she opted just to cook once, which she never welcomed the thought. Phoebe considered the EPC to be life-changing, and for her, she does not see herself going back to the use of biomass. The next, this is Mary. Mary comes from Kisumu. In as much as they are not using EPC, they are using biogas because in Kisumu rural, the area, it has still not been connected with electricity, but they are using biogas as an alternative clean source of fuel. So Mary started using biogas in 2017. This project was initiated by Biogas International, and she was among the beneficiaries who got to be part of the project. Before she started using biogas, she relied on firewood that she had to collect on a daily option. This was cheaper to her because she didn't have to expend money buying firewood or charcoal. The only time she incurred an expense was when it rained and she had no alternative but to buy charcoal. In as much as she knew the harmful effects associated with HAP, household air pollution, she overlooked them, and the motivation was to get the food done. And the motivation also was the fact that there was no monetary attached to it. However, with time, Mary began having problems with her eyes, with her vision. And when she visited the doctor for appointment, she was told that the smoke was somehow contributing to her eye problem. And the doctor recommended that she stops using charcoal and firewood and opt for cleaner cooking options. But Mary was not sure that was something she could do because she considered buying an LPG or other clean technologies. To her, those were cheap alternatives compared to the firewood that she could get for free. But thanks to the project came in handy at a time when she needed it the most, and she considers the project, the biogas, to be a blessing in disguise in her life. Now with the biogas, she no longer has to worry about going to fetch firewood, especially with her vision. She has problems seeing, so having to go and fetch firewood is not an option for her. But with this biogas, she can get to cook whenever she feels like at any time of the day. So she considered this a positive benefit in her life and something that transformed her life for the better. And with the people in charge of the project, most of the time they refill for them their plant, so she doesn't need to refill plant for her biogas to be in operation. Next, we have Eunice. Eunice is a businesswoman, but still she cooks for her family. She used to cook with her family using firewood, charcoal, and kerosene, with firewood being the main source of fuel. On average, Eunice will use roughly to 20 shillings a day on fuel. In the morning, she will use 50 shillings for kerosene on breakfast, lunchtime, 70 shillings on charcoal, and supper, 100 shillings, which total to 220. From the smoke emitted from these fuels, her children used to get sick often, and they always cough and complain of chest congestion. However, everything changed when she embraced the biogas technology, and she attests to the fact that nowadays her food is clean, the pots are clean. She doesn't get to expend much energy washing the pots. Her home and compound are clean because all the dirt, animal droppings from poultry, chicken are collected and used to fill the biogas plant used to generate the source of heat. Even there's no longer soot from in her home that generated from the use of kerosene stove. So she considered this technology a blessing for the many benefits that comes with it, including health-wise. And most importantly, the thing she underscored was the fact that her husband gets time to support her to cook whenever she is late from work. Previously, she stated that her husband would even not dare help her cooking because they mostly cooked at night using firewood, and it was not something that her husband would want to associate with, considering the ego that men have. So with the biogas, whenever she's late from work, she comes home to find her husband having prepared the meal for the family. I'll go first. This is Kisumu, Evelyn from Ramogi Institute of Applied Technology. She is a trainer in the hospitality department. She interacted with the EPC when we visited there to create awareness on the technology. And she loved the technology when she interacted with it. And among the things she underscored about the EPC was the fact that it saves on times. Foods that normally take longer boiling time get to be cooked within shorter time. And the fact that is affordable in terms of fuel, that is when compared to charcoal or even firewood. And it's a clean energy, just as others stated. And the thing that she loved most about it was the fact that it has hidden advantage. The fact that food gets to be cooked in its own medium implies that little water will be used. And the little water used help to save on nutrients. So the nutrients are not washed away because the water is retained and no water is discarded after the food is cooked, and that it's easy to operate because of it is programmed. You can select the option to use depending on the type of food you want to cook. This is Batuli. Batuli is a businesswoman in Nairobi, Kahawa Wendani. Batuli, unlike the many businesswomen around Kahawa Wendani, is among the few people who have fully embraced clean cooking technologies in their cooking. Batuli started the business in 2018, and then she mainly relied on charcoal and LPG. Considering the long time needed to boil cereals, she had to have 3 jikos to prepare the different types of cereals. One jiko she used to prepare beans, another one to prepare green grams, and another one she used to prepare tea in the morning. And the LPG she mainly used to prepare chapati and mandazi. So on average, she normally spent 600 a day on fuel, 4 tins of charcoal at 100, and to refill her gas at 800, which lasted for 4 days. So if you divide 800 by 4, that is 200 plus the 400, that comes to around 600. And the fact that whenever she used charcoal, there was a lot of wastage because after cooking, the charcoal remained, after she was done cooking, there was nothing she will do to the charcoal that was already burning. So with the EPC, she was very happy because of the shorter cook times, as can be seen there. And with the EPCs and induction cooker, she got more customer, and depending on the time that customers came, they could always find food in a business. And when she embraced the e-cooking completely, the price she used on fuel reduced significantly from 600 to 150. Though e-cooking has so many benefits, what impressed her the most was the fact that she could save on fuel, which means that her profit margin increased. And for that reason, she introduced this technology to some of her friends, out of which 2 embraced the technology. One has 4 EPCs that she uses to cook her different cereals, and the other one has 1. This is from a business point of view. Second to list is this Joel from Kitui. This is a guy who actively advocates for clean cooking in Kitui Ukambani region. Previously, he used to rely on biomass and LPG, which had their own challenges. But after he embraced the EPC, the benefits that were associated with the EPCs outweighed the cons. So it's a technology that he was really happy about, and which he's championing at a personal level, encouraging the people from the local areas to go for this technology. In as much as it's not expensive, the upfront cost, it gives value for money. The money that one saves in terms of fuel in the long run is cheaper than the amount of money one uses for fuel. So people should embrace this technology and stop relying on charcoal for the benefit of the environment. The last one is Benson. Benson is the HOD at Water Technical Institute of Applied Technology in Makueni. And he interacted with the technology for the first time when we visited the institute. And he underscored the fact that limited time is used to prepare different meals, and the fact that it's cheap compared to other technologies. Only little water is used. This too was very important to them, considering that Makueni faces major water issues, and they normally have to buy water to do most of the activities. So the fact that this technology uses little water was something that she underscored. And in his department, he has 562 students with only 3 workshops. So not all of them get the chance to practically attend all the workshop sessions because of the many students and the few workshops and the many requirements needed. Like for him, he said that on a weekly basis, they normally use 35,000 Kenyan shillings to refill their gases for all their practicals sessions. But with the EPC, they won't have to use such an amount, and he will no longer have to worry about the student population, because ideally, previously they used to take like 6 hours in one session, practical session, as have been broken there. But with the EPC, they only need 1 hour for a practical session. So that will create room for enough practical sessions to be done in a day, and which will make sure that all the students get to attend in all the practical sessions. So to him, this is a technology that should be incorporated in the mainstream and even in the curriculum. And he no longer has to worry about the student being many than what they can accommodate. These are the few random opinion I got from people on cooking with electricity. Many people have the mentality that cooking with electricity is cheap, is expensive, something that prevents them from wanting to adopt this technology. From the first statement, this I got from Twitter after we posted about the EPC. This one I believe is a person who has embraced the technology. So to her, she stated that people still have the mentality of kupika na stima ni ya matajiri. Until you do the math and find out you are saving more, people still cook githeri beans and other foods with charcoal for hours while you get yours done in minutes. And she bought this for her mom as a gift. Another one wrote, don't play with our minds. 0.3 kilowatts is not realistic for cooking with over 2,000 wattage. Might be cheaper than gas cooker though. Another one wrote, now cook njahe and something else, 2 tokens gone per cooking, 3 meals a day, 6 tokens gone. So in the long run, you get to use 8 to 10 tokens a day. But that is not the reality, as we have seen from the success stories of those who have embraced the technology. Why should we care? Why should we care about transitioning to cleaner sources of energy, such as EPC from biomass? From the WHO report, as we had stated, 4.3 million people die yearly, and this number is more than the deaths caused by HIV and malaria and tuberculosis combined. So this is something that should worry us, because it's something that we can stop, because it's something that we make decision about. We can choose to use cleaner technology, and we reduce the number of people dying yearly from this exposure to HAP. Another thing, it contributes to deforestation, and at the moment, we can all see the effects of climate change which are mainly attributed to deforestation and the emissions of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Another thing why we should care about this, women and young children are mostly the one in charge of collecting firewood and cooking. So much of their time that should have been spent studying or even improving their careers is wasted having to collect firewood. So with the clean cooking technologies, much of their time will be freed and they'll get the opportunity to study and even continue with their career and educational goals. And as such, the need to embrace clean cooking. From the few case studies we have seen, it's something that is cheaper and something worth embracing. Thank you. And you are free to give your remarks, questions, whatever. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Emily, for the wonderful presentation. I think it's more realistic when you get to hear a lot about these impact stories and we get to demystify some of the, things we've heard about e-cooking. And from one of the quotes, we saw someone saying the assumption that cooking using electricity is for rich people is something that now should be a thing of the past. So I totally and really feel motivated by Emily's presentation. But as she was presenting, I was just thinking about the first success story, that is Mary Wanjiru. And to be honest, we're all going to be Mary Wanjiru someday. Old age is going to catch up with all of us. But what will happen if we did not embrace the e-cooking technology? Do you want to go through the hassle of trying to try to fetch firewood or trying to cook using charcoal when we have the opportunity to now go for a very efficient method of cooking and doing all other stuff by embracing the modern cooking technology. But also just to bring to your attention, the main aim of this modern electric cooking service project or program is to catalyze the transformation of clean cooking through technological, institutional, and market innovations that enable long-term use of the MEX program to generate inclusive environmental and development benefits for the poor. So the Africa Research and Impact Network and the partners specifically worked with different organizations in the East, West, and Southern Africa to pursue the transformations through multidisciplinary research evidence and policy options as tool for convening various stakeholder and facilitating policy and business frameworks for the MEX program. And now this transformation was covered in two areas, that is research and knowledge production, as well as impact on the policy and industry landscape. So through this program also, we've partnered with a lot of suppliers of the modern cooking technology. And as we've seen, a lot of people have been able to embrace this technology. So at this juncture, I want to welcome any comments or questions from the floor. So feel free to raise your hand or to type it in the chat, and I will be keeping an eye. Awesome. I can see Dalingare's hand is up. Please feel free to ask your question.
Thanks, Juliet, for the opportunity. I'd also like to thank Emily for the wonderful presentation. Actually, I really got encouraged by what we're learning on the impact of e-cooking, which is quite encouraging. I'm Dan Ligare from Kakamega. And among all the attributes given towards e-cooking, maybe there's one that really interested me. We are really at the heart of the ugali. And I had somebody mention that one of the advantages is that the pot used to prepare ugali has an advantage because there's not so much wastage of the flour after cooking ugali. Okay, it may be true or not exactly, because for us now, what is being called the West, on a light note, is always also an escort for, after preparing ugali, whatever remains at the pot is always an escort for another day. So just on a light note, to take note of that. But we are actually trying to adapt this and trying to bring in the idea of behavior change, because people where we are normally have the perception that the best ugali should be prepared on the 3-stone, and it has to be in that aspect in the normal pots. But we are actually getting the aspect of these new pots that are actually coming out, bring out the ugali completely as it is. So we get the escort on top of the real meal. This is just from the real experience that we have from here. But generally, that's a good, it's a good transition that we are coming in, and we encourage also our people to adopt it. Thank you so much, Emily, for the good presentation. And we look forward to more of these as maybe you also sample Kakamega one of these days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dan. I think we totally relate to some of your sentiments, especially on wastage. So I think that is very well noted and really interesting to hear that people from Kakamega are also embracing this technology. So thank you very much for the comment. I can see Haran's hand is up, and Haran, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Juliet. And there's an echo. Now you're good to go. Thank you, Juliet, and thank you, Emily, for the presentation. This is really good work that has been going on. And I'm Haron Akala. I'm a research fellow with Africa Research and Impact Network, and I've been part of the team that have been implementing the MEX project. And I just wanted to make some statement in regard to the Emily presentation, just to bring it home. Now, if you look at Kenya at the moment, Kenya, access to clean cooking at the moment in the year 2021, it was at 20%. But now, there are challenges that we are experiencing as a country. For example, one of the challenges that we are experiencing is about perception, affordability, access. And the other challenge is, what are the benefits that you get from it? So the real issue has been more on the perception that, as Emilia said, that someone will say that I'm the one who has used, I've used 8 units to prepare my meals from morning till evening. Now you find someone else would say that I've used 0.3 units to prepare my meals. So the conflict that, in terms of that, that conflict of information from different people which are misguided, lead to somebody, or leads to the people not to adopt the technology because of the perception that if I use electricity, I will consume more of my units, and that will be more expensive. Besides, now the question is, what are those fuels that WHO that are under Tier 4? Now, if you look at those, some of those fuels that have less health risk, we have biogas, we have LPG, we have electricity. So electricity is among them. So the question is, if we say we want to use, like, for example, if I can just give an example of Kenya now, there are those who are using charcoal, but now we are transitioning to improved cooking stoves. For example, improved jikos. In the end, yes, we will consume less fuel, but the end of the day, still we are at risk. We are still at risk because there's still an emission. And why are we saying there's still an emission? Because now, if you look at the carbon stock, the carbon and the black carbon that is being emitted, that is being as the waste from the use of biomass, is the second leading emission in the world, leading to climate change. So if we transition, that is, we are transitioning from if we transition to use clean cooking, it means that we are able to achieve SDG number 7, that is access to clean cooking. SDG number 13, which is SDG number 3, which is about health, and SDG number 13, which is about climate. So those are the things that we need to gear towards that. So the question that we need to ask ourselves: what are the opportunities that that are there for us to be able to transition to clean cooking? For example, if I give you an EPC and there's no electricity, it means you will fuel stuck. So by the end of the day, you will go back to use, you'll go back and use probably Jiko. If you have a Jiko, probably you're cooking githeri, and then there's no electricity. So it means that you'll have to go back to use the other fuel you already have. So the other challenge that is there in Kenya is about fuel stacking. So the perception and fuel stacking. So the fuel stacking has led to that the uptake to use of this clean cooking at the moment in Kenya to be slow. So it's high time for us to think what are those opportunities that we can embrace? How are we going to make sure that we are able to publicize such good information, such good news or information, so that at least we are able to multiply as many people who can be able to use this technology. Thank you. Back to you, Juliet.
Thank you very much, Haron. And you've raised a really interesting point on, when you're using e-cooking technology, it's like you're hitting several birds with one stone, because you're also taking care of your health in the process. And also, I think fuel stacking is not just a problem in Kenya, but I think we have almost similar problems in the rest of Africa. So really, we have to think about how to solve challenges of, first of all, access to the electricity, so that this technology can be actually embraced. There's a question from Idris Salifu. I'm going to read it, but before that, I'm curious to hear from Delali. I just picked a random person, but what is one myth about modern electric cooking that you've heard that you almost believed? This is just an icebreaker. So Delali, if you can unmute yourself, I would like to hear what you have to say.
Hello, Juliet.
Hi, Delali. I can hear you.
Thanks for the good work you are doing.
Wow.
Yes, I have tried almost all now, because I grew up in a village where we used to use firewood. And then I moved to town. I used charcoal before. I use LPG now. As a student, I'm now using electricity. So I think it's easier using electricity, because sometimes I put my things on fire, especially rice cooker and other things. And I can be doing my things, and then I set alarm and I'm there. But with gas, that time you have to be there before you can be cooking your food. So I've experienced all the process when it comes to using energy in cooking, from the rural community to where I am now. So this is very interesting. So saying that, I want to now ask my question. Can I?
Sure, you can.
Good. This is very interesting presentation. I want to know, just like Hansen just said, which class of people are really adopting the technology? I mean, I want to look at the economic status. Which people are really patronizing? That's one. And then what is the government saying? Maybe we interview only those at the lower level. I don't know whether I interview people, maybe, I don't know of Kenya, but maybe people of authority who can also promote it. Because the uptake, if it also comes from the government, the top officials, maybe that can also help. So what provision are they making in the country for the uptake of this technology? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilali. It's really interesting that you can absolutely relate to both sides of, using the, let me call it traditional methods of cooking, and also experiencing the other side of the modern cooking technology. So we're glad to hear that kind of success story from your side, and that you can attest to the fact that it is more efficient to use the modern cooking technology. So I'm just quickly going to read Idris' comment, and it says, my question to Emily is the fact that this adoption green technologies like the e-cooking is a critical issue of concern. And I want to know whether she explored some of these challenges of e-cooking. So we're going to take one more question. Oh, I think, Emily, you can answer the two, and then we can take the question from Finney.
Thank you, Idris, for the question. The challenges experienced with the adoption of e-cooking, we factored that, only that I didn't capture that in the presentation. So there are so many challenges associated with the adoption of e-cooking, particularly in Kenya. For one, we have the issue of electricity. Electricity is not yet reliable in many parts of the country. And Nairobi, at least I can say Nairobi, the electricity is now reliable than it used to be. But in other parts of the country, especially in rural areas, electricity is not that reliable. And that is one hindrance to the adoption of the e-cooking technology. Another thing is that we have the high upfront costs of these technologies. Most of them range from 7,000 going upwards, which most of the people who use biomass for cooking can't afford. And they're the population that we mostly want to transition to clean cooking. But this upfront cost to many of them is a challenge, and it makes it difficult for them to embrace this technology. But such challenges are being addressed, because at the moment we are trying to come up with business models that will enable low-income earners buy these appliances through a plan. And also some women in different rural areas, like in Kitui, they have the thing we call it chama in Kiswahili. In English, it's like a merry-go-round where women get to save money and buy for one another these appliances in turn. So it's addressing the problem of upfront high cost. And another issue is that many people are still not aware of energy efficient electric appliances. There's a big difference between just any other electric appliances and energy efficient. Many people are still aware of the other models of appliances like burners or coils, which consume a lot of energy compared to the energy efficient. So the mere fact that you bring the topic of electricity for cooking, they go to the normal cookers like hot burners, hot plates, which consume a lot of energy. They're still not aware of this energy efficient. But for the people who have interacted or who have visited our demos on these appliances, they readily buy the idea and adopt this technology for their use. Another issue is about the myths and perception around e-cooking. Many people, especially in the rural communities, are of the mentality that you have to cook specific foods using specific fuels. And when it's done with electricity, it's not the same. So such mentalities and such perceptions make it difficult for most people to embrace this technology despite the many benefits that they have. Those are just a few of the challenges that we have been experiencing, and the lack of a policy framework to facilitate the adoption. But in the country at the moment, we are in the process of developing an e-cooking strategy that will help facilitate the adoption of this technology in a wide scale. That will address the question that was raised by Idris and the question that was raised by Delali, the class of people adopting the technology. This is an interesting question, because as it is, many people who have the capacity to buy these appliances without having any difficulties are not buying these appliances. Why? because many of these people don't cook in their homes, so they're not interested. What they want at the end of the day is to see food on the table. They are not concerned about what was used to cook, because many of them have employed house helps. So they don't care about the fuel that was used, in as much as they have the ability to buy these appliances. Another thing is that most of the people adopting this technology, from what we have interacted on and what we have gathered, are the people living alone, and especially men and people who don't like to cook. Because with an EPC, you don't have to master the art of cooking. You can just put your ingredients together and you set up the appliances and foods get to be cooked. And more men and those people in school and those who love cooking, they're really buying these appliances. And those who have visited our demo centers and seen the benefit of these things are buying. In as much as they may not have the upfront cost, our manufacturers have come up with a plan where they can pay in installments, upon which they'll be given the appliances. And another thing, what is the government saying? The government is also receptive about the technology, because we really go a long way in addressing other issues that we have as a country, like reducing the emissions that we contribute as a country as stipulated in our NDC. So the government of Kenya is really supporting this. We are working with the Ministry of Energy Kenya, and one of the partners is really championing this technology, and she's propagating the same to those within her circle. So it's a technology that has the support of the government, and I know with the proper awareness and with the proper policy frameworks, it will be the next big thing in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. And I can see there's really interesting conversation going on in the chat. And I see a comment from our diplomatic and liaison officer, Paul Osogo. I'm going to give him a chance to speak maybe sometime later. But at this point, I would like to allow Finney to ask his question. Finney?
Yes. Hello, Juliet. Thank you so
Hello.
much.
All right.
I hope you could hear me. Yeah, so I just came in slightly late. I may have missed on certain discussion points, but it's also an opportunity to clarify. When it comes to this entire discussion, one thing we can confess about changing cooking methods or asking people to adopt new technologies and letting go of the old technologies may be of great challenge at one point or the other. So my question is, what are some of the best practices or lessons you have used to strengthen, of course, behavioral change techniques in ensuring uptake of e-cooking among these households? And as you address this, also, what are some of perhaps the behavioral research gaps that you think exist in this particular area? Because of course, it would be fundamental understanding these gaps and also understanding some of the best techniques in ensuring that these people have changed their behavior and actually taken up these projects. It will really help solve some of the research paradoxes that we face. So it would be interesting to understand some of these elements or strategies that you used to address all this. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Finney. So I want to read this comment from Denson, and it says the African families are sizable and also have a better appetite than other parts. Do we have plans to have the appliances that can take into account this consideration? Also remembering institutions and functions. So sounds like a rhetoric question, but Emily, you are at liberty to respond to that if you wish to. So Haron, would you like to add something to what Emily just said?
Yeah, thank you, Juliet. I just wanted to add something in regard to the publicity. There is the Kenya, there's a program that the government of Kenya have started about the rural electrification. And this program is about the Kenya Least Cost Power Development Plan, which is started from 2017 to 2037. So the purpose was to ensure that at least everyone, to increase their access to electricity across the country. And then also beside that one, they were also to try and reduce the cost of electricity across the country so that we can be able to support the community to be able to, the household to be able to use the electricity. But however, the other challenge that we are experiencing is about the appliances. You find that most of these appliances that are clean, that are useful, that are clean, you can use it for, they have less health impact. They are very expensive. And beside that, the government of Kenya there's also tax implication of these appliances. Some of these appliances, they are not tax-free. So you have to pay tax. So if those appliances could be tax-free, it means that it will be a bit easier for as many people to be able to access them. And if they are cheaper, they'll be able to access them. And then in terms of publicity, at the moment, you find that within the urban setup, there's the social cohesion, and then also apart from that one, there's interaction between different cultures. And also the infrastructure development within the urban setup is a bit, it's better compared to the rural area. So knowledge transfer in the urban setup is better compared to the rural setup. And then if you look at the World Bank report, you realize that in the rural area, there's low likelihood of a household to adopt these technologies just because of the perception, as Ali had stated. So those are some of the things that I find that still the government is trying to support, but still as an individual level, what are we doing to be able to make sure that we are able to adopt this new clean cooking technology? Beside that one, just to answer to Danson, just also to reflect to Danson's comment, it's true, you find that some of these, for example, the electric pressure cooker, at the moment, I've only encountered an 8-liter electric pressure cooker. The ones that are already there is the 4-liter and the 6-liter. So in terms that you have a big family and then you want to cook a lot of food, and probably depending on your consumption rate, likelihood of you using certain appliances is it's a bit low, because you find that you'll have probably to cook twice or thrice. But now if you look at the cost implication, when you cook twice and when you cook with a big pot using the driftstone fire, it means that when you cook twice with the appliances, it will be cost effective than when you cook once using the driftstone. So the question here is about how large the appliances is. The question should be, how can we able to use appliances that are cost effective? Thank you.
Awesome.
To add on what my colleague Harona said, I'll start with Danson's question on the appliances size. What is currently being done to factor in the aspect, especially for those with big families and for our institutions? As an institution here at APS, we are partnering with, we have partnership with technical institutions like Ramogi Institute and Water Technical Institute. So part of this, part of the plan that we have is for the students in the electrical departments of this institution to study the EPCs and come up with a prototype that is bigger enough, that will be ideal for those with big families, and that will be ideal for institutions like the cooking, hoteliers, and even for schools, most of whom are the major consumers of biomass. So there's that plan that is going, and also there's that element of we want trying to come up with a way that will enable this idea to be incorporated in the Kenyan curriculum. And in so doing, it will be easier to incorporate such decisions and plans to have better prototypes that will be ideal for people with big families. And to answer the question that Fini asked on what are we doing to change the behavior, the perception of people about e-cooking. Considering that many people still have the mentality that cooking with electricity is expensive, and they won't buy this idea unless they see it with their own eyes, as we are partnering with the Kenya Power and Lighting. They have a demonstration center where we normally have classes twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, and it's open to the members of the public. They get to come there and witness different foods being prepared using EPCs or induction cookers. And we normally have a meter plug, an electric meter plug with us, where we fit the appliances in the meter plug, and the plug gets to show us the amount of units that have been used for different foods. And from the units, we can calculate. And then after cooking, we allow people to taste the foods, because without tasting, many people say that the food prepared using these technologies are not as sweet as food prepared using biomass. So after testing, they get to be convinced that, oh, there's another way that we can cook with, besides the way that we are used to, and the food still gets to be sweeter and even much better than the way we are used to. So such demonstrations helps to change the perceptions of people regarding this technology, regardless of their status. I can say for sure, because I have two friends, they are not employed. They visited the center, and now the two have bought not even the cheaper one, which the cheapest is around 7,000. We have another one that has both function of a pressure cooker and air fryer combined, and it goes for 12K. Two of them have bought that at 12K. So to mean that when you understand the benefits of this technology, the cost will not become a major issue because of the value that we'll get after purchasing these appliances. So those are some of the methods that we are using to change, to get to have the behaviors and the perception of people to be changed about this technology, and later on embrace it for their cooking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. I'm not sure if I'm locking anyone out, but at this point, I would like to welcome, sorry, there's Eldad raising his hand. So yes, Eldad, please unmute and ask your question. Sorry, I think you're muted. Could you kindly mute?
Yeah, I think I missed the majority of the presentation due to the time difference, but from the very little that I have gathered, I see it as more like a great concept. And then I am interested in knowing if the presentation will be made available, because basically this is an area that I have been interested in. Like we are in an area in Africa where majority of energy consumption for cooking has to do with biomass. And then we are also battling with fuel wood extraction and climate change. So concepts like this that seem to, because I've over the years even used by teaching people energy audits and then household energy management. So I'm interested in knowing how this concept will help households also get back to clean cooking, and then not bother so much about not just energy cost, but the climate change implications of cooking. So I would want to know, will the presentation be available, and then what's the next steps after this discussion? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eldad. Yes, absolutely. We'll be able to share the presentation and the recording of the session right after we're done. But also we have developed a robust strategy for communicating the work that we have been doing around the modern energy cooking technology program. So yeah, just stay tuned. There's a lot more that is coming in. So I see a comment from Idris, but before I read that, I would like to give Paul Osogo 2 minutes to just say something before I welcome our convener, Dr. Johannes, who also is the project lead for this program, to give his final remarks. Paul?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Juliet. Emily, congratulations. It was a very nice presentation. What I'd asked on the chat was for you to mention some of the other appliances of electric cooking, efficient electric cooking appliances that are out in the market, so people don't think we only have the EPCs, because the induction cooker is also one of those appliances that can address Danson's issue. The bigger the pot, the more food they have in the family. That's a plus for the Ugali champion. Another issue I wanted to point out is that the appliances, the e-cooking appliances, especially the EPC, is user-friendly, and it has thought of persons living with disabilities. It can be used while the person living with disability is seated. So I believe inclusivity is also something that the electric pressure cooker has addressed. Back to you, Juliet. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Very concise and to the point. So I think I'm just going to read this comment from Idris, and then I'll welcome our convener to shed some light and also to give us the closing remarks for this very interactive and informative session. So Idris says, still thinking of cost implications. The geographical context and heterogeneity in e-cooking is very critical to policy discourse. In Ghana, for instance, I see that rural dwellers would be more likely to use e-cooking compared to their urban dwellers counterparts due to prepaid cost implication. Why am I emphasizing this? Why am I emphasizing this? That most rural areas who have access to electricity are not on prepaid meters, and this is good for e-cooking adoption compared to we in urban areas depending on prepaid meters. Prepaid nowadays is very costly, and this could prevent a lot from using e-cooking if this is implemented in Ghana. So how can we solve this? I think we cannot really ignore that question, but I'm going to let that question be answered by our convener. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. So at this juncture, let me welcome Dr. Johannes Atala, who has been leading this very interesting program. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. I guess the last question, and more questions are coming, really very interesting. And perhaps it would have been really nice to hear other people's thoughts, not only Emmy's thoughts, but other people in the discussion, what they think about some of those concerns around the infrastructure of electricity and how it is enabling, it could enable e-cooking, bringing in the questions around metering, and other elements. And I see another question from Emmanuel, which says, while we try to educate the populace on e-cooking, let's also try to educate them on possible hazards associated with e-cooking, such as explosion of gas as a result of wrong usage. Yeah, so generally those perceptions are still very heavy when it comes to e-cooking. The perceptions around costs have been mentioned. The perceptions around the risks, which are being highlighted here, and most people think that electricity is just something that will burst on you anytime. So it is a major concern. When I go back to the village at home and I take an electric pressure cooker to my mother, who is now 70 years old. The first question she says in my language is that so this means this thing is going to burst on me. So yeah, so it's a major concern in terms of those issues of risks and issues of reliability. And I guess this is the challenge we have as champions of clean cooking, that we begin to unpack and let people really know that cooking with electricity is the safest way to cook and the cheapest. Emily has not shared with you the cost, but if she did, you'll be so shocked that really it costs less, many times when you cook with electricity than if you cook with maybe charcoal or even gas, or that is the cylinders and all that. But 2 points to mention as I thank everybody for being part of this. Number one is that it is a time when we cannot just look at electricity as a lighting service. There has been a lot of investment to support electricity. I look at my country, Kenya, and I see a lot of programs and a lot of billions of dollars being invested to support access to electricity. Harold mentioned some of those particular programs. But the question is, what is the need for this electricity? What is the need for this electricity? Because on one hand, we have that increase in the access to electricity. If you look at Kenya now, reports show that the access to electricity is about 75% of households able to access electricity. But if you turn that around, you find that the number of people who are able to access or undertake clean cooking, or the number of people who are still cooking with biomass, still very high. So almost less than 30% are able to access clean cooking opportunities. Yet we have abundant electricity, which I think most households mainly use for lighting. So once you switch off the socket and you switch it on, you switch it off, that is, and then we are happy, there's a lot of lights, then that is the joy of many people. But I think this is a momentous time that we need to rethink on how to really see electricity as a huge resource, of course, for lighting, for cooking, for enterprise development, for really, creating opportunities for employment, green jobs. There are cases where e-cooking has really created a lot of job opportunities for different people. And these opportunities, range from the technical support to businesses. I know in Nairobi now, where some restaurants, most restaurants, and some even mama mboga, or the groceries and the hotels are actually using electric cooking to really produce their food, and the food that they sell is really hygienic. It's clean when you look at it, the way it's been cooked. There's little smoke, and you'll eat when your heart is really open and happy. So that is very, very important, that we begin to think about electricity beyond just being a lighting issue. So that would mean that we continue to push and continue to educate people. We in this particular webinar today are part of the champions who are supposed to promote this particular message and spread this gospel to the very end, to the different parts of the continent. So it's only through that we'll be able to change that particular narrative. The number 2 point I want to mention is the fact that there are barriers. Of course, those have been said. And one of the biggest barriers to cooking with electricity has been said as perception, but I think also cultural barriers, as Finney put it, that really changing somebody who has really been used to going to get firewood from the forest nearby their home. They come, they lit the fire and cook their ugali or fish or mukimo, or igusu soup for this, in the case of Nigerian, our friends from Nigerian, or fufu. It's very difficult to change this person to tell them that now you can buy an EPC at 8,000 Kenya shillings, equivalent of $880, to now begin cooking, and so that they shift from that fire. So there's a lot of barriers, and that kind of belief and deep alignment to the culture remains a major concern. So the questions we have to start asking ourselves, and if you think about research questions, what are some of the cultural barriers to electric cooking? So those who are doing master's theses, PhD, I would run away with that. Like I would do really a very nice thesis in terms of, looking at just the cultural barriers to e-cooking. And there are many, some of the case studies that Amy has presented really also speak to some of those particular issues. So as I close this webinar, I just want to put it before us that we need to begin thinking about how to decolonize the cooking culture. The cooking culture is strongly embedded on traditional ways of cooking, and we can't run away from that fact. And we can't say that, e-cooking has come, and so those who can take it, those who can run away with it, let them run away with it. If we do that, we will be reinforcing inequalities, because if we are not able to champion that the people, the poor, the most vulnerable people to dirty energy become part of the e-cooking agenda, if we can't intentionally do that and make it a market issue where those who can afford are the ones who get to cook with electricity, what we have here is a situation whereby a technology which is supposed to be bringing justice will reinforce injustices, because then we will run away with the few who can afford and can be able to cook with it, but the rest who are still using fire, they'll be left behind. And you remember the SDG number 7 is about leaving no one behind when it comes to clean energy. So we must be intentional. And this one I put to the e-cooking champions, that we must be intentional in promoting e-cooking to the poor, to the villages, to the communities, to the grassroots. It is not just a market affair. And that is why in the last few months, we established the hubs with a number of counties in Kenya to be centers where people in the grassroots are able to access these particular technologies. Otherwise, allow me to say thank you so much, and appreciate everybody who has made time to be part of this interesting discussion. As Juliet mentioned, we are going to have a very sort of rigorous campaign for e-cooking in the next 6 months or so. And this will take different forms. And yeah, and I hope that we'll be able to catch up. We'll be able to catch up to be able to be part of that campaign, that you can help us spread this gospel to the different places, to the different contexts that you are engaging with. Otherwise, thank you so much, and may the Almighty God bless and keep you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atela, for the very, very insightful comments and observations. So I do not want to say more after that, because I think all has been said. At this point, we normally close our review session by taking virtual selfies. So I welcome all of us to turn on our cameras if you can, and our media team will take screenshots. So I'll give a minute as we just turn on our cameras. Brenda, kindly reach out to me directly and I'll be able to further direct you. It's really nice to know that you'd love to be engaged further in this. All right, thank you very much. So just in the count of 3, I'm going to call all of us to put on a smile as our media team takes the selfie. So in 1, 2, and 3. All right, Salome, are we good? All right, so thank you very much, everyone, and see you next Friday for another very amazing session. I will be able to make the communication on email, and we hope to really engage with you once again. Thank you. All right, bye.
Seriously? Oh no, that was not good.